What if I told you that XRP could hit triple digits because of a single event? Sounds crazy, right? Well, I didn't believe it at first either, but then I ran across a scenario involving a new kind of crypto investment that completely changed my perspective here. So here is the deal. Over the next few weeks, the US SEC is set to decide on a whole bunch of XRP ETF proposals. We're talking big name asset managers like Grayscale, 21 Shares, Bitwise, all lining up to launch an XRP exchange traded fund, which basically lets institutional investors get into XRP easily. Now, if even one of those ETFs gets approved, it could open the floodgates for big money to flow into XRP. Now, everyone's guessing just how high that could push the price. I kept hearing some pretty wild numbers, and honestly, I was a little bit skeptical. But I stumbled on an analysis by a guy that is named 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗋, with help from ChatGPT that actually painted a pretty astonishing picture here. Now, by the end of this story, I promise that you're going to see XRP's potential in a whole new light, and why I'm actually quietly preparing for it. Let's start with the basics, because right now XRP is hovering around just a few bucks. It's come a long way since the dark days of the SEC lawsuit, and sentiment is pretty optimistic. I mean, not right now, but it has been, especially with a lot of these ETF decisions kind of looming. Now, market watchers, they think that an XRP ETF will boost demand, but nobody really knows by how much. It's kind of uncharted territory. So Rob from the 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗋 show decided to actually crunch some numbers instead of just speculating. Now he asked, right, what happens if, say, $17 billion flows into XRP ETFs within the first year? $17 billion. Now that's a whole ton of money, right? So to put that into perspective, that's like if each of those potential ETFs pulled in $1 billion. Now, Rob made some pretty key assumptions here. Right? He figured about $5 billion at least 5 billion XRP tokens are actually circulating and up for grabs right now. Now, he excluded things like Ripple's escrow, big institutional holdings, and other kind of lockup XRP, right? So that's only roughly 5 billion XRP in the float, right? Trading around $3, $2, somewhere in that range. So you can do the math, and that float is worth approximately $15 billion, if XRP were $3 per token. Now, let's imagine $17 billion suddenly wanted a piece of that $15 billion pie. Right? Now, we've got more dollars chasing XRP than there are actually XRP available at the price. Right? Now, it's kind of like the sold out concert tickets with more fans outside desperately looking for tickets to actually get a seat inside. So when buyers try to scoop up XRP at $3, they're actually just trying to buy around 5.7 billion tokens, and only 5 billion actually exist at that price. Now, you don't need to be at least have an economics degree to kind of guess what's going to happen next here, right? The price, it just simply has to go up. Now, Rob's model, it actually said in a perfectly smooth world, like if every XRP holder was willing to sell at just the right kind of increments, right, price might actually only rise from $3 to around $3.40, right? That's the kind of pure math outcome if every token were instantly available for sale, which of course never happens. In reality, people aren't lining up to just dump their XRP at $3, right? People would have done it already. A lot of holders, myself included, wouldn't even dream of selling at such a low price after waiting this long. Plus, XRP's liquidity can get very thin. Even modest buy orders can move the price up very, very sharply. We've seen it with other assets, right? Just remember gold's first ETF or Bitcoin's early ETF buzz, right? Prices, they didn't climb slowly under those conditions. They actually reset very quickly. So, what kind of jump are we talking then? Right, well, here's where it gets actually quite exciting, because in Rob's base case scenario, it's actually most, or at least if most of that 5 billion XRP float stays liquid, meaning that a lot of people are actually willing to sell, well, the influx of ETF money could actually push XRP to somewhere in the $8 to $15 range. Now, that alone is pretty mind-blowing. Right, even the low end of $8 is more than double of XRP's previous all-time high. But it gets even better, right? If fewer people are actually willing to sell, let's say only 20 to 40% of that float is available, well, the price could actually spike to around $20 to $35 per XRP. And in the kind of tightest supply scenario, where hardly anyone wants to sell, well, maybe just 10 to 15% of tokens are on the market, which we could actually be looking at prices above $50. Now, Rob set out a few ranges for, at least to kind of summarize all of this, right? A conservative case of around $8 to $12 over 12 months, a stronger range of $20 to $30, and an extreme case north of $50. Basically, his math suggests that if ETFs bring in that $17 billion and the supply is limited, as we think it is, then XRP probably doesn't actually it doesn't just inch past its all-time high, it actually potentially blasts off into the double-digit ranges. At this point, I was already pretty much shaking with the excitement. I mean, I've been in this XRP game for quite a while, and seeing credible analysis hint at $10, $20, $30 XRP, it kind of felt like hearing your long-shot lottery numbers might actually come on up. But Rob wasn't done. He said, hold on. That's just phase one, because what happens after XRP starts shooting up like this? Well, that's when human nature and a little bit of Wall Street greed kicks on in, the FOMO effect. So let's think about that. If XRP suddenly breaks into, let's say, $10 or $20 territory because of these ETFs, well, the headlines alone would be pretty insane. Crypto Twitter would be on fire, and you can bet not only retail investors, but banks, hedge funds, and financial advisors would be scrambling to get a piece of the action. Now, Rob pointed out that the US banks control around $22 trillion in assets. Global advisors manage around $115 trillion. And American households are more than $5 trillion in savings. Now, even if 0.5% allocation across those pools would actually translate to roughly $110 billion from banks, $575 billion from advisors, and $25 billion from retail. Now that totals over $700 billion combined. Yes, billion with a B. Of course, not all of that would automatically and actually move into XRP, right? There's a hypothetical max number, right? But humor me for just a second here. Even if a fraction of that would actually send XRP's price chart completely vertical, right? With only kind of 5 billion tokens in circulation, the market couldn't absorb that kind of, even a fraction of that kind of demand without skyrocketing the price. So in Rob's model here, the ETFs is literally just the trigger. But the true market impact, it comes from global capital rushing in once momentum has built. So where could that take XRP's price? Well, Rob basically threw out some eye-popping possibilities. Without that kind of broader rush of outside money, maybe XRP lands between that $8 to $30 in the first year. But with widespread FOMO, he thinks it could climb to $50 to $150. And in an even more extreme case, if systemic kind of allocations take hold across banks and advisors, XRP might break into the $200 to $500 range. And yes, you heard that right. His absolute moonshot scenario is XRP around $500 a coin. Now, when I first read that, I was absolutely stunned. $500 XRP, it sounds like pure hopium, right? And to be real, it's a bit of a long shot, but anything, at least not something that anyone should actually be banking on, I should say. But it is rooted in a pretty clear logic, and you can't argue with that. Even a tiny percentage of huge capital pools can have a pretty massive effect on a relatively small asset like XRP. So it's a scenario, it's not a guarantee. However, even the possibility of double digits, or dare I say triple digits, XRP, it kind of got me thinking pretty hard about how I'm positioned in this space. Now this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Okay, so deep breath, that disclaimer is there because, well, look, even though I'm pretty optimistic about XRP, you've got to stay grounded. Not every piece of news or analysis will, of course, come true. Still, the fact that credible people are mapping out paths to potential triple, or double, or even triple-digit prices makes this moment in crypto feel rather special, right? We're essentially at that kind of frontier of something that could be rather historic, or maybe not. But it sure feels like the early chapters of a story that we're going to be telling for years. Now, let me switch gears from the what if to the what I'm doing about it, because hearing all of this, I asked myself a question. How do I get ready in case XRP really does go on an absolute tear? Well, first off, I'm going to be making sure that I have my bases covered when it comes to exchanges and liquidity. If there's one thing that I've learned from the past bull runs, it's that exchanges can get overwhelmed or even temporarily shut their doors when a tidal wave of new users or trading volumes hits their books. Now, I don't want to be stuck, unable to take any profits or unable to move my funds because I only had one exchange account and it completely froze. So I actually went out and I signed up for just about every kind of major crypto exchange that I can find. Seriously, I've got the whole folder of them, right? From the big boys like Coinbase and Kraken to the smaller ones like the 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰s and the BitGets and the 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗀s. Now, each one is KYC'd and tested with a small deposit or a trade. Why? Because I want a plan A, B, C, and even D. If one platform has a bit of a meltdown, I can just pivot to another. Now, it might sound like I'm paranoid, but ask anyone who's tried to withdraw during a peak of a bull market. It is a complete nightmare if you're not prepared. Now, by the way, if you're considering diversifying your exchange options too, then I do have affiliate links for all of the exchanges that I personally use, including things like, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰, BitGet, Kraken, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗀, and they're all listed on my website, which I have a link in the description down below. Now, using those links, it is totally optional, but if you do, then it does help support the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. It's kind of a win-win-win situation because the exchange gets a new user, you help the channel out, and there are some sign-up bonuses depending on your jurisdiction. Now, speaking of exchanges, there's another opportunity that I want to put on your radar, especially if you're an XRP believer like me. Now, I've actually partnered up with Kraken. Yes, Kraken, the OG crypto exchange, with a very special promotion just for you guys. They reached out to me because they saw that I was producing all of these XRP videos and they wanted to basically reward you guys for signing up to their exchange. Basically, if you use my link that is in the description down below to sign up and trade at least $100 worth of any crypto, except stablecoins, within 30 days, well, Kraken will drop you an extra $25 of XRP into your account as a reward. It is literally free XRP for doing what you might have done anyway. Now, this is a limited time thing, and it's a pretty sweet way to kind of stack even more extra XRP while also getting yourself set up on a very reliable exchange ahead of this next bullish wave. Now, all the details and the fine print are on the website and Kraken's website. All the links are in the description down below. It's not affiliated with YouTube in any way. This is just something that Kraken is doing. So check it out if you are interested. And just to be really crystal clear here, that Kraken link in the description is also an affiliate link. Now, aside from exchanges and snagging some bonus XRP, I'm also exploring some unconventional ways to increase my crypto holdings. Now, you might have heard me mention Unity's project before in previous videos. It's not the main focus for today, but it is really interesting, and it's a way to basically help a decentralized telecoms network, and I have been exploring it. Just think of it like turning your smartphone into a mini network that actually audits telecom signals and actually pays you crypto for doing it. In simple terms, you run the app that helps verify network integrity, and you earn crypto rewards for contributing. Basically, from your smartphone to the world. Now, in action, it's very clever. I ended up actually buying a Unity Node NFT, which came with 200 licenses for 200 devices. Now, I'm obviously not going to deploy 200 phones on day one. I'm going to start with these 10 phones over here when the Unity app goes live. It's not live yet. And it's kind of a neat way to kind of earn more crypto. Now, what is really cool here is that I get to choose to be paid in various different cryptocurrencies, not some kind of new coin that's just being made just for this. You can choose to be paid in Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, even XRP. Now, if this works as advertised, it could slowly and passively add a lot more XRP to my stack over time without me having to go out and buy it outright. I should stress though, like any project, people need to do their own research on Unity. This is not a risk-free or magic internet money, no. Right? I will put a link in the description down below to Unity's light paper and their rewards calculator so that you can see all of the details and the potential earnings for yourself. And of course, we've been discussing it in our free educational Discord server too, so you're welcome to join there and ask for more details. The link is down below. Many of you already in the Discord have seen me update, or many updates that we have been putting out about Unity. So you know that, what's been going on and you've known for a little while. In fact, I recently picked up a second and third Unity Node NFT, with the idea of leasing those licenses out to you guys, right? So we've got extra licenses, and not everyone can afford to buy a full master node for themselves. So this way, people can participate by just renting a license under one of my nodes and earn some crypto rewards that way. We'll do a bit of a revenue share. You take 90%, I will take 10%, and it helps the channel here as well. Now, I'll also have more information about how all of this works down in the Discord server, so go check it out. And there's also a link to the dApp that we built just for leasing licenses, and that's linked in the description below as well. And just as another example of how I'm trying to think outside of the box to grow my crypto stack, right? Essentially, as we kind of gear up for what could be a very exciting time for XRP and the whole entire market. So circling back to the big question then, could XRP really reach the stratosphere, $50, $100, $500, because of these ETFs and a wave of FOMO? Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't own a crystal ball, and this isn't a movie where everything's going to go perfectly according to plan. But here's what I do know. Just a year or two ago, even the idea of an XRP ETF was a pipe dream, especially with the SEC case that was hanging over Ripple. Now we're actually on the verge of possibly seeing multiple XRP ETFs become reality. Now that tells me that the crypto landscape is maturing much faster than a lot of people actually expected. Maybe XRP hits $10 and stays there. Maybe it overshoots to $50 and then corrects. Maybe, if the stars align and the whole world kind of piles on in, we see something crazy like $500. Or maybe the SEC denies these ETFs and we go back to the drawing board for a while. You have to consider all of the sides here. But even the conservative end of these scenarios and these models, they suggest a future for XRP, at least for XRP, that's brighter than it's been for a very long time. And for me, that's enough reason to stay optimistic, to stay informed, and to stay prepared. The key takeaway, and don't sleep on what is happening right now, basically. Right? Pay attention to the SEC's decisions this month and next. Right? Keep an eye on how the markets react. Have a plan for yourself, whether that's assuring your kind of assets, or securing, I should say, or using opportunities like Kraken's promo to accumulate more XRP, or even exploring new projects like Unity that give you a bit of an edge. Right? This is not just about XRP. Okay? It's about being ready for whatever the crypto gods are going to throw at us next. So if you found this journey as eye-opening as I have, then be sure to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next crypto adventure. And I will catch you all in the next one.